we know this thing of hotels and hotels that are named for another city in the city. That's the Budapest. Our country is invented, and I think it combines Hungary, Czechoslovakia, Poland. It mixes together many countries. But Budapest does get special notice as the namesake of our hotel. I also think a bit like our movie is partly inspired by Hollywood movies, maybe from the 30s, that were set in places like Warsaw and Prague and Budapest. And I think of The Shop Around the Corner, that's Budapest, but probably filmed in like Culver City. So I feel like that's a bit of our reference. The experience of Eastern Europe that we tried to create in our story is it comes from my own travel around that part of the world, but before that, it comes from books and movies, and my impression of it. That's why when I say that there's a Hollywood version of Eastern Europe, but those are movies that were made by Eastern Europeans, by people from Berlin and Vienna who were working in Hollywood. So I feel like we're in that mixture of people inventing these places who haven't lived them, and taking inspirations from literature and films and making new stories that come out of those. As you go through all these different aspects of this era and this culture, this broad culture, it's a very rich art period. In Stefan Zweig's memoir, his description of Vienna before the First World War is almost entirely about poets, composers, playwrights, artists. That was the center of their life. He describes his world. He saw a sort of shift in the next generation towards sport. But for his group, for his contemporaries, it was all these arts, and they were the rock stars of Vienna at that time. And yes, so that's partly what I sort of see. There's so much to draw on, and to I would say even to steal from that world at that time. And that's part of what our movie is collecting these inspirations. The first idea for the movie had nothing to do with the setting. It had to do with this one character played by Ralph Fiennes, Monsieur Gustave in our story, and he is inspired by an old friend. Hugo, my friend Hugo, and I made the script together, and our friend was the model for this character. And immediately, as we started writing it, I began to think, I have wanted to work with Ralph Fiennes for some years, and I started thinking I would love to write this part for Ralph. In the end, I really don't know who else could play this, and nor would I want to see anybody else play it. But that's what it began with, and then we combined that with my kind of feeling that I would like to do something that was in our own invented version of Eastern Europe. With this movie, we have quite a large cast, lots of people who I've worked with before, but several people, Rafe and Murray and Jude Law, Tom Wilkinson, Saoirse Ronan, people who I've never worked with before. And it's very fun for me finding new, getting the chance to work with actors who I love, who I've never worked with before. And Murray is a very interesting one, and I think I think maybe he says this because I felt like he was having fun on the movie, and I don't know if that's I felt that I was seeing him a bit bemused and curious about our whole way of doing things, and that he was liking it. We had a great time with him. He has a wonderful voice, and he has a very powerful kind of presence. I had not traveled around, so I had not spent this kind of time in that part of the world before. And when we had written the script, we had written the story where there's this hotel in say the 30s, and it's at its peak, and it's at its most popular. And then in the 60s, let's say, the place has fallen out of favor. It's kind of falling apart, and it's in decline. But traveling around in Eastern Europe, going to places like the Hotel Gellert in Budapest, in particular, and traveling around in Czech Republic to Karlovy Vary and in Prague, we realized that we were missing something, which is a layer of history in the architecture. Communism is very present when you visit these places. You see it, you see the old place and the newer place inside it, and then the newer period inside of that. All these layers still exist. So we changed our story a bit without really rewriting it. It was in the design and the architecture of our movie. We sort of automatically started to build in something about the history through the architecture.